Hi, everyone, and welcome to this really special edition of Talking Story. Of course, those of you who have tuned in before, you know that Talking Story is a way we describe our relationships in Hawaii. The way we get to know each other is just sitting around and talking and chatting about our lives and about our interests. And in this series that I've been doing for over a year now, we've talked to people from communities of color and to get to know them, to hear about their life stories, but also about their passion and their interest in social and racial justice. And today is really special to me. I am so happy to have two of our young people who have been at LOPC for many years, Amanda Young and Hailey Hilsabeck. And they had a special time this last summer in a project called Stop AAPI Hate. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in this interview. But I'm so happy to have both Hailey and Amanda with me today. And we're recording this the day before Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to both of you and to your families and to all of you out there who are listening as well. So Hailey, Amanda, thanks for joining me. Really appreciate you doing this. And I'm so glad that you can join us for the interview. So I wanted to start by asking you this. The last year and a half has been so different, right? It's been so hard for many people, the pandemic and everything else associated with it. And so I wanted to begin by asking both of you, how have you managed your mental health, your spiritual health, and your physical health, especially in the first part of the pandemic when we were all made to shelter in place? Because life for you really changed, didn't it? Uh, let's start with you, Amanda, and then we'll ask Hailey the same.
Sure. I would say that it definitely wasn't easy, but I tried to kind of stay in routine and keep doing things that I liked and also just enjoy the extra time that I had with my family because before it was like a lot of kind of on the go, like going to school, going to work, going to extracurriculars, but I actually kind of had the time to maybe slow down more. And so I went on a lot of walks like with my mom and I did a lot of baking and cooking. And it was fun to be able to engage with people on Zoom too. My family has started doing like game nights on Zoom every week or every other week. And we've still kind of tried to keep up with that. And so we would play like Jeopardy or we would do like, I don't know, like random trivia games and things like that. So those are a lot of fun. And then I was also really grateful that LOPC had a lot of Zoom options. So I got to stay engaged with BTW that way.
Thanks, man. How about you, Hailey?
It was definitely really difficult at first because I've always been kind of like a go kind of person. And yeah, I play sports and stuff. And it was the first time in as long as I can remember that everything kind of just stopped and shut down. Um, I I managed my emotions about the pandemic by like using like exercising as an outlet or spending time with my family, which I never got to do that much before the pandemic, which was an upside of it. Yeah.
I did more walking in the last year and a half than any time in my life. I think that was one way that it's really weird though. When I first started walking, I was walking Iron Horse Trail, but there were so many people out there, and I was so conscious about the virus. So then I started walking on sidewalks where there were hardly any people out on the streets. So yeah, that was one way to keep my mental health going. Um, I know that a lot of people probably don't know you very well, either one of you. So I wonder if you could both share with us about a little bit about your background, a little bit about yourselves, maybe about your families, how you came to be a part of LPC, and where you are now in terms of your education and your schooling. So let's start with Hailey.
I've been a part of LOPC since I was born. I was baptized there when I was less than a year old. Um, I go to Head Royce School and I'm a sophomore.
How long have you been at Head Royce, Hailey?
Since sixth grade, so this will be my fifth year.
And you and your family live right across the street from the church, don't you?
Yeah.
So it's really easy and accessible for you.
Yeah.
And you've been part of the youth group. Have you been part of the youth group? Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Amanda?
So I have been coming to LOPC, I think since around 2007 or 2008. And I've done like Kids Rock and Godly Play, and then all the way up through like BTW. And I've really liked working with the childcare too, and like going to VBC and volunteering with that too. And so I graduated from Campo earlier this year. And now I'm a freshman at Washington University in St. Louis, and I'm majoring in American Culture Studies there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Great. I know that all of us here really are so happy that you've been part of our church, both of you. Speaking of family, I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about your family background, and even more so, if you could tell us, does your family practice some cultural traditions of any kind? Let's start with Amanda.
Yes. So my mom is from Singapore and my dad's from Hawaii. And I would say cultural traditions, a lot of them probably do revolve around food because that's an important part of Asian cultures. But we also celebrate Chinese New Year in like January or February every year, and we try to do like a special meal and kind of adhere to some of the traditions, like maybe wearing something new. But other than that, a lot of them do happen when I'm in Hawaii with my grandparents too, because those are times when we can be with family and kind of like do things more together in that way.
Terrific. How about you, Hailey?
Mine are also mostly food based, but we do celebrate Girls' Day and Chinese New Year in my family. We also have traditions of making spam musubi for Thanksgiving, or
Yeah.
wontons for New Year's.
Oh, spam musubi. A lot of people think it's so gross, but man, I love that. I love spam. I'll eat that any day, every day if I could. Oh, great. So I know that both of you participated last summer in an internship and you were with an organization called Stop AAPI Hate. And I wanted to ask both of you what that was like, but first, could you maybe Hailey tell us what Stop AAPI Hate is?
It's really just about stopping the violence. It's the recent violence against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. I got involved with it because I just felt so fed up with seeing all the news about the violence, and I thought this was my way to like take action and do something.
So your internship, what did your internship include this last summer?
So we started with making infographics for like Instagram. And then we interviewed a bunch of people to get data about people's like incidents that they've had happen to them or have witnessed happen to other people. And then we made a lesson plan about something like in the realm of Asian American studies.
Were your interviews mostly with young people or was it across the board?
Yeah, it was all people under 18. I mostly just did my friends.
I see. So your internship basically worked around teenagers.
Yeah.
I see. How did you hear about Stop AAPI Hate?
I didn't really hear from anyone who had done it. My mom encouraged me to do it and I just applied. I kind of just knew about the organization and I was like looking around for things I could do this summer.
Great. Yeah, so Stop AAPI Hate for our audience is a collaborative and a collaborative group. And it began as news started coming out about violence against Asians and Asian Americans in our country during the pandemic. And Russell Jung, who I interviewed last year, was one of the co-founders and co-directors of it. And they've been keeping track of all the violence and vitriol against Asians and Asian Americans. And I think at this point, there's probably about 8,000 reported incidences, and that's just recorded incidences. And so there's probably a lot more than that. So that's the organization. Amanda, how about you? Tell us about your involvement with Stop AAPI Hate.
Sure. So I guess 2 summers ago, summer 2020, I was an intern in their youth campaign. And so I was doing a lot of the things that Hailey had talked about, like interviewing other youth about their experiences, and making like curriculum guides, or we ended up doing a policy report at the end too, about like anti-Asian hate that was affecting like students. And then this summer, I was part of a project called Asian American Intergenerational Stories Project, with Dr. Jung, and then also Dr. Tammy Ho from UC Riverside, and then some other undergrad and grad students and like incoming freshmen. And so the goal of that is to create a documentary series about elders speaking about their experiences. So sort of like it's actually kind of based on Talk Story, like what we're doing here, I guess. And so talking about their experiences specifically, with like racism or trauma, and how they use their religions to heal and cope with that. And so it was really interesting. I was on a team and we were researching Chinese popular religion, Christianity, Buddhism, and Taoism. And then there were some other groups that were doing different religions as well. And so we were reading different articles and interviewing some scholars kind of about what they've found with that. And so we were working on creating a curriculum guide that'll accompany the documentary when they're like recorded and like released and everything like that. So that was really cool. And then right now I'm working on a team that's like posting some of the infographics that Hailey was talking about that the team's made over the summer. So we have like a social media account that we kind of run too.
Is it through Stop AAPI Hate or?
Yeah, it's called Stop AAPI Hate YC, I believe. So like the Stop AAPI Hate Youth Campaign.
That's wonderful. So you're still continuing in it all. That's great.
Yeah, it's nice that I can do it even from St. Louis, because it's like I just like do it on Zoom.
Great. So I wanted to ask both of you, what did you learn over the summer through your involvement with Stop AAPI Hate, whether it's about yourself or about the climate in our country, anything that you took away from your time in the internship? And Hailey, let's start with you.
Well, I definitely learned things for myself about like how to interview and talk to people or how to research. I also learned that a lot more people had experienced racism than I had thought.
Have you come across that, Hailey, in your school with friends?
Yeah, we haven't had any super like big things happen at our school, but there's always been like microaggressions, especially in like the couple months before we got shut down. There was a lot of talk about the virus and blaming Asian people for it.
Do you have interest for the future in terms of pursuing something along these lines?
I think so, yeah.
That's great. How about you, Amanda? What did you take away from your internships?
I think that like Hailey, I also learned that sadly like racism is very pervasive and kind of prevalent. But in terms of like the work that we were doing, I learned a lot about community building, and the importance of things like, I don't know, like solidarity just as a whole, because racism is kind of I don't know, I've also learned about this a little bit in college, like just kind of how it's a structure and like a system. And even though it happens like on an interpersonal level, it's really like this big systemic like structure kind of thing that lets that perpetuate and kind of like facilitates it, I think. And then also I guess just more broadly that like little steps and working together can have a big impact even when it doesn't really feel like you're doing anything at first. Like all those things kind of combine and then you actually can.
So your interest in studies now. Was that partly because of your time with Stop AAPI Hate?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I think that doing these internships made me realize that I'm really passionate about social justice, and that there's so much more that I can learn. And so that's why I'm really excited about what I'm studying in school.
That's terrific. So last question for both of you. How did your faith, how was your faith shaped through your time, and or how did your faith actually get you involved in this, and as well as your hope for the future? Let's start with Amanda.
I would say that my faith is kind of why, like one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about social justice, because I really feel like God wants us to like love our neighbors and like advocate for the meek and fight for like what we think is right. And so, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's kind of like one of the grounding things and why I'm like really passionate about this.
How about you, Hailey?
Faith really helped me through the pandemic because in the beginning, in the times when school was shut down and nothing was happening and the violence against Asian Americans was just starting, it was really hard for me, but it kind of helped to think that like God has a plan and yeah.
Yeah, sometimes there's some of the things that are happening in our world and our country. It's so hard to have hope about things in the future, but I think that's part of the reason we lean into our faith, isn't it? That we have to trust that God somehow is at work in all of this. Well, any last thing that you might want to share with our congregation? Any last word to them? Okay. Well, thank you both for joining me today, and we're so happy that we could do this. And happy Thanksgiving to both of you and to your families, and give them my best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.